that you can secure it with conditional access. So if anybody's familiar with the Microsoft EMS suite, the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite, there's a really nice Active Directory premium feature that's called conditional access that lets you secure cloud connections, based on your location, based on if your device is a domain joined device, based on if you've passed MFA or if you're a hybrid joined computer. So you get all that power of conditional access baked into connecting into these clients as well.
And as this is a managed device, we can use that as a second factor, right? So we can say you need MFA to get into the Windows 365 environment, but as you authenticate it in, you're using that device as your second factor to Office 365 or resources, so you don't get reprompted. So it's kind of that better experience with the kind of the refresh token of the managed device.
Yep, exactly. One of the benefits here in my example is that if you're not comfortable with allowing internet access to this desktop, you can create a conditional access rule that says only allow access to this machine from within our local network. And that way, if you have, a current thin client system like um, oh, I'm drawing a blank. I think Horizon is called, or a Wise machine. Sorry, if you have like a Wise machine today, only accessible from within the network, we can do the same type of thing where it's only accessible in the network. So knowing that this is basically a Windows 10 or a Windows 11 image, it's meant for really organizations of all sizes. It's meant for just deploying a single image. Maybe that's your high privileged access machine that's living in the cloud. Maybe that's a beefy workstation that you need to do advanced CAD drawings or processing of some sorts. But it scales from one user all the way up to hundreds of thousands of users. Okay. With that said, there are multiple hardware configurations you can use. It can go all the way down to, I believe, 2 GB is the minimum, all the way up to a very beefy, large scaled machine. So meant for all kinds of organizations, whether you're a 4-person company or 400,000. There are 2 offerings with Windows 365. It basically comes in a business or enterprise SKU. And there are just some minor differences to these. So the business SKU is primarily meant for smaller, medium-sized businesses, something that may not be needing Intune management or endpoint manager management. They just want a secured, controlled machine in the cloud. The limitations with the business are, one, that you can't manage it through Endpoint Manager. So you can't do Intune rules and configuration policies and that fun stuff we're going to be talking about a little bit later. And there's also a limit of up to 300 devices. So if you need to deploy more of these, Microsoft makes you go up to the enterprise license.
Yeah, so if you guys have a business premium license, you're on that Windows 365 business. If you have a enterprise license, you fall on the enterprise.
Yep. And with the enterprise licenses, that's meant for people who do want that end-to-end management through Endpoint Manager, otherwise known as Intune. There is no limit on devices, and in both cases, I guess Windows 10 or 11 is supported. Now, I mentioned accessing it through an app or a desktop client. There's a couple links down at the bottom. The simplest way that we're going to be accessing this VDI image basically today is through the website. It's windows365.microsoft.com. So if anybody on this call goes to that website, you're instantly going to know if your organization has published this already. It's going to either tell you that you have no images provisioned, or you're going to see an available image so that you guys can log into it. But yeah, go ahead and try visiting that site, bookmark it. That's what we're going to be using throughout this demonstration. Otherwise, you can go ahead and download the client services. The link I have in this presentation is for Windows Desktop. We're going to show you some other ways where you can get the mobile supported solutions too. Okay, and we have our first question. Question is so if Business Premium gives access to Endpoint Manager, can that skew by both Enterprise or Business Edition? So with the Enterprise license in this, you still need an Intune license per user. And I believe Business Premium includes Intune, so you'd be covered there. It's just that you wouldn't be able to manage that machine natively through Intune. So I guess if the question is can you do a step up of this to enterprise? I think the answer is yes. Leif, do you know for sure? Or does he need to upgrade his O365 to premium
No,
enterprise as
I
well.
don't think there's a direct relation. I think you need to have the licensing, the Windows 10 and 11 enterprise licensing to do it. So with Windows 365 Enterprise, each user must be licensed for Windows 10 or 11 Enterprise, Microsoft Endpoint Manager, and of course Azure AD P1.
Yep. And we'll go into that a little bit deeper. We do have a licensing requirement slide. So if we don't have all of your questions answered, then just feel free to bump that question, Tracy. Thank you. Okay, I actually skipped one slide here. So back to the why use it. Okay, so if you're wondering, hey, hypothetically, people are going to be sitting on a laptop and then they're going to just remoting into another desktop session. Why would we use this? Why does this make sense, right? And on that level, it seems a little goofy. Why not just protect that endpoint device? But there's a lot of benefits to deploying this, namely it makes things easier for your staff. It's basically a software as a service. So Microsoft is managing all the infrastructure side. They're managing, the control side of this. Well, you're managing the control side of this through Endpoint Manager, through policies and pushing out applications. So it gives you that centralized area to make it a lot easier to manage on the device level.
Yeah.
Um,
And we're gonna kind of at the end of the slide, we'll talk about all the new features coming out too. But where Windows 365 is trying to focus a lot on, those temporary or shared workstations where you don't need to have to issue a new device, or maybe you're at a hospital and in a nurse station, you can have that thin client there, or even the new Windows 11 integration, they can log into their own machine wherever they're at.
yep, absolutely. Yep, and it helps you create that highly secured desktop with the latest Microsoft security features that any device can connect to. So again, using things like Intune compliance, you can use Intune configuration policies. You can even deploy what Microsoft calls the Windows 365 security baseline. And what that does is that gives you a pre-configured hardened image, right? So it's known settings that kind of lock down that machine and get you in a more supported state as we're talking about enterprise machines. And then you can also automatically deploy the Defender for Endpoint solution directly to that machine to give you the whole end-to-end antivirus and malware and virus protection. Another benefit of why to use it, there's incredibly fast upload and download times to the cloud services, right? You're basically in that backbone of Azure. You are connected in the same data center to a lot of the Microsoft 365 services. If you have large CAD drawings, if you have large Excel files, and you're waiting on those remote download times, the time for you to get it from the cloud services down to that virtual desktop living in the cloud is incredibly fast. Also, there's some niche scenarios. So a lot of these bullet points, they apply even if you're just using a standard desktop controlled through Intune. So really, it's not a plus or a minus at that point. It's just a little bit easier to do. So if you have that specialized workload, maybe distributed employees, maybe some operations in your organization that require beefier hardware because you don't want to send and have users using a 64 gigabyte memory machine. You have that opportunity to centralize that in the cloud and get the benefits of auto scaling or scaling out that machine to the size that you need. Okay, so I don't know how many of you are lucky enough, but if you have 64 gigabyte memory laptop, that's pretty good. Might be on your desktop, but that gets pretty expensive when organizations buy that for everybody in the company. So that's a few reasons. On to
Yeah.
Azure Virtual Desktop. So Leif, go ahead.
Yeah, and I could jump in here. So, is anyone using AVD or Azure Virtual Desktop right now? We get this quite a bit. What's the difference?
Give
And
us
there's
give us a reaction up on the top of your Teams meeting. A little thumbs up if you're using AVD right now.
all right.
Got a couple. All right.
So in Windows 365 isn't a direct replacement for AVD. Right, there's definitely a number game and a management game how you kind of handle that. So Windows 365 is really the SaaS solution built on Azure Virtual Desktop. So it uses the Azure Virtual Desktop to surface those machines. So we have a lot, customers are looking at AVD versus Windows 365, and it's kind of a numbers game, or what staff you have. How are you going to manage Azure Virtual Desktop? Do you have the staff to manage it? Looking at AVD, right? You're going to have, depending on your size, right? You could have a $300 AVD machine that hosts 16 to 32 users. So your cost right there is 8 to 10 users versus the minimum cost of Windows 365 at 31. Where it gets complicated, right? With AVD, you're going to monitor your performance of those VMs. You're most likely going to manage the image, right, to make sure your images across the virtual desktop are the same. You're probably using FX logic to kind of get the profile data off, so you're not flooding the machine. So there's a lot more flexibility with AVD, but it adds the complexity and the cost, right? So if you don't have the staff, or you're starting to use the resources, they're heavier users, right? They're not only doing web-based stuff. Maybe they're doing Teams, they're just sharing screens, they're doing phone calls. Maybe they have Visual Studio on there. You'd more look at Windows 365, where each user has their own machine versus kind of that shared Azure Virtual Desktop. And once you, and kind of I think the magic threshold, once you're looking at a one user per core on your Azure Virtual Desktop, is when it gets comparable to the Windows 365 cost. And those are really kind of the medium to heavy users. And then, when you're looking at why not go Windows 365, you don't have to manage the desktops, the images and the performance side. They have their own machine. So if they're doing something on that machine that slows it down, they're not affecting everything else. So again, Windows 365 is kind of that complete software as a service built on top of the Azure Virtual Desktop platform.
Yep. And I'll say, for those that are on Azure Virtual Desktop now and kind of seen how that has matured and got through to the different life cycles there. If you haven't seen Windows 365 yet, your socks are going to be blown off, because it's much simpler to deploy. It's just a few clicks. You don't have to do a lot of the back end connections, PowerShell, and things like that you used to have to do in AVD. It's just a very, very simple, quick solution.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's all some at the end of the day, it can be about money, right? If it's all web-based users and you're comfortable with AVD, AVD is going to beat the Windows 365 price, hands down. But if you're medium to heavy users and you don't want to have to manage that environment, the Windows 365 is going to be a lot simpler.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so what are the requirements? How do we get started with this? So I think the obvious thing here to call out is that you need a valid Azure Active Directory tenant. I'm guessing most of you do. You might be even using AD Connect Sync to sync your user objects over there. That's great. If we're going to be doing a hybrid connection, meaning that we're actually connected to your local network, you are going to need AD Connect, and it's going to need to be healthy and up to date there, because it does do some device sync across the wire. And if you're going to be doing, again, that hybrid join, it requires a virtual network in your Azure tenant as well, that is connected to on-premise or wherever that domain controller lives, really. You're also going to need an Intune subscription. So those of you that are buying a la carte, that's about $6 per user per month. Intune's also baked into a couple other subscriptions, like that business premium we talked about, the M365 E3 license, or an EMS E3 license. So that would cover you on the Intune side. You also need to have a Windows 365 license. Basically, there's two ways to look at that. One is through the hardware. So I'll go through and walk you through getting the hardware license, and we do that just through the admin portal, the O365
Please.
admin portal. And then the last license you would need is a valid Windows license. So if you have a subscription-based E3 or E5 Windows license, or that M365 license, you're covered there. This isn't meant for somebody that actually doesn't have that license already off the shelf. So That's kind of the back end requirements. Also, not going to go through all of these, but I have that underlined link that says network requirements. Whole article on Microsoft of what you can expect for ports and endpoints. I think it tells you bandwidth requirements and extra things like that. So be sure to download this presentation, take a look at that link. Otherwise, throw it in your favorite search engine and you'll find it pretty easily. The last thing to know is this isn't deployed every single region out there in Azure. So the ones that I have listed here are the up-to-date regions. They're constantly adding them to different regions. Just know that I imagine everybody here would probably use US Central. I don't think I see a North Central in here that we usually see for some of the other ones, but you'd want to deploy to the closest region of your user base. All right, now on to the really fun stuff, the pricing. Okay, how much is this going to cost? So we just mentioned the Intune license. That if you buy it a la carte is $6 per user per month. You're going to need that Windows license. So if it's a standalone Windows subscription license, that's usually baked in the M365 pricing. So just know that you have to procure that. And then there's the actual hardware license here. And now when I say hardware, I'm saying it in quotes because you're basically buying the virtual machine hardware here. So over on the left side of my slide, everything on the left is going to be the business-based SKU. And if you remember from the slide deck a couple slides ago, the business SKU is meant for up to 300 users, and it's meant for companies that don't want to manage this image through Endpoint Manager or Intune. Okay, otherwise these are basically the same from business to enterprise. But if you can see here in my slide, the cheapest license you can get is $31 per user per month. And that gets you a 2 virtual CPU machine, 4 gigs of RAM, and 128 gigabytes storage, all the way up to $66 a month, which gets you 4 CPUs, 16 RAM, and 128 gigabytes of storage. Basically, Microsoft's advertising here is that you can do more on the bigger machines. It'll support more applications like Visual Studios, Power BI, and Dynamics. On the other side of this, we have the enterprise SKU, which again, that supports Endpoint Manager integration. That goes to unlimited user amounts, but basically same type of thing there. $31 for 2 virtual CPUs, all the way up to 66 for the 4 core. Now,
and just to know, I was going to say it goes past the $66, and Microsoft's always, just like any service, they're going to keep extending that back end, what the cost is or how high you can go, right? I think the highest you can go right now is like $158 a month for an 8-core machine.
Yep. And Eric is wondering in chat what the education angle looks like on these slides. Is it even option and difference? Eric, I'm actually not sure. I know that I guess I haven't looked into that. I don't think there's one on the government side either. I think this is just the commercial, sticker price, as I call it. I would guess if you guys have a Microsoft sales representative and it's the beginning or end of your enterprise agreement renewal time, you might be able to work in a deal here, but that is just me guessing. So this is sticker price again. We're going to be doing it just going through the portal, entering in a credit card and getting it that way.
Yeah, and I would say if there's not a specific SKU for education or government coming, right? It's pretty new.
Yep. Now, one thing, if you guys are questioning, hey, we don't know what size we're going to need, there is a little wizard that I've included in the link below. Feel free to go to that. It's just a very simple, what are you going to use the machine for? And at the end of it, it tells you a sizing estimate. One thing that we'll show you in the demos is that you can resize these. You can actually do it directly in the Intune portal now, or sorry, Endpoint Manager portal. There's a resize button. It's a preview feature, but it's working pretty slick. So you can change sizes throughout this, or you can pull an image and redeploy it with a different size if you want. Okay, this slide has some animation, so I'm going to hope this works out here for this slide deck. But basically, wanted to walk you through what this looks like creating the solution. Okay, so this is all done within there we go, it is working for me. This is all done within the Endpoint Manager admin portal. So the URL for that is endpoint.microsoft.com. formerly called the Intune Management Portal. Okay, so in order to get to that, you'd open up a new browser or pick your fanciest redirect you have. You can get there from the O365 Admin Center or from the Azure portal, a lot of different ways. But basically, once you open that up, you're going to go to the Devices tab, and you're going to see highlighted at the bottom left a Windows 365 slice, a blade there, a little tab to pick your options. Okay, and once you're within that, you're going to have all of the stuff on the top. Um, Going from the overview, going from what you're seeing here, a custom image. If you want to bring your own image, if you already have a Windows Gold image that's set up exactly the way you want, you can bring and upload that. But basically, the process is very simple. So what you do next is you want to just go ahead and create a provisioning profile. This is where you give it a name, you give it a description, and you could pick. Hold on, my screen is a little small, so bear with me. You could pick the join type, which is if it's going to be a cloud-only Azure AD join, or if you're going to want it connecting to your on-premise network, which would be a hybrid AD join. Okay, and let's say hypothetically you are doing a hybrid AD join. I mentioned you needed an Azure virtual network that's connected to your directory. This is where you would select that virtual network for connecting that PC back to your domain controller. And then the region. So very simple settings here. After you get through creating that provisioning profile, you then go and select an image size. An operating system. This is where you can pick Windows 10 or 11 in a specific version if you want. So lots of options there, depending on what your company supports.
And
You
these
can
been
also,
optimized too. So like the Office 365 is Teams optimized, and you'll see the different optimizations. Again, you if you were doing Teams and screen sharing, you would go right 2 core plus for 8 gig RAM.
yeah, and you bring up a good point too, Leif. If you're familiar with the Azure Virtual Desktop side of this, there's a whole article on how to optimize for Teams in it. These optimized image, that stuff is done for you. You just want to make sure you're in the right size for what you're going to use it for. Okay, again, if you don't want a pre-baked factory Microsoft image or optimized image, then you can always bring your own image. This is where you'd select that. The next step is just to select your language. So it supports quite a few languages. Okay, the assignments piece is just like any other endpoint manager setting where you're going to go and assign a specific profile or policy in this case to your users. So you'd want to have a Azure Active Directory or an on-premise Active Directory security group created with those users who are qualified to use this provisioning profile. Okay, so here you can see I'm using a group called Windows 365. That's my example. You guys probably will have a whole bunch of your own groups in here. And then after you've created this profile, you basically go through, make sure everything's set up the way you want it to be, and click the Create button. After you've created the profile, that's going to take some time to provision. So you'll be under this provisioning policies for a while under a provisioning status, and you'll see that when we build it out in the lab. That's normal, 15, 20, maybe up to a half hour is usually what it takes for that machine to be
I
fully
think it's
built.
around a half an hour usually.
Around a half hour. So that's normal. Now, one of the slices in this portal is going to be for that Azure network connection. So again, if you guys want to hook this up to your on-premise network, we're going to be doing that in the lab. But you would just want to predefine that Azure network. You just click the plus button here and walk through the wizard. And if you've already done a VPN or site-to-site VPN, this would be very simple for you to do.
Or Express Route, yep.
Or Express Route. This is basically selecting that VNet from a dropdown at that point. Okay, and then the final thing you have to do is the user settings, which is the far right tab. User settings is going to be essentially, is that person an admin or not, and can they restore the service through the Intune portal? Okay, if you want to elevate admins right now, I imagine this is going to be built out to be a lot more user-based settings and maybe fine-grained things. But don't forget, if you want to tweak the machine, if you want to set a desktop background and you want to set screensaver timeout settings and icons on the desktop, that's where the power of Endpoint Manager comes in after this machine is built. Okay, so Really, it's as easy as that. If you are familiar with the Azure virtual desktops, you're probably like, wow, why didn't I do this a long time ago? This has only been out there for, I think, around 12, 16 months, 18 months, maybe. Not as long as AVD has. So
yeah, and they're putting a lot of work in there, and just the coming soon. I think this was just announced the last month, but with Windows 11, and they're porting some of it back to 10. But for example, you get the Windows 365 boot, right? That allows you to log directly into your cloud PC. And, think about the Azure Active Directory. It knows your login. It knows what Windows machines you're tied to. And then each, thinking of a nurse station, right? Each nurse could log into their own cloud PC from that shared device. There's Windows 365 Switch, which I'm kind of excited about. That allows you to switch between your normal desktop and a cloud PC. So if you're a consultant and you're working with another organization, maybe they have Windows 365, you would be able to navigate back and forth between the organizations. Or doing a demo, right? We could have a cloud PC as a demo, and I could hit that task switcher, and I'm doing stuff on my cloud PC, just switching in a couple of clicks. They're building the Windows 365 app into Windows 11, and it's supposed to be able to be downloaded at Windows 10 when it comes. This is just to help streamline those services and functionality. And then the Windows 365 offline. They're making it so when your PC is, your connectivity is disconnected, it'll resume those changes without data loss. So there's a lot, and when we heard this, we were really excited. We're kind of just waiting for that stuff to start being rolled out. And then I just included this link on the slide. I know we said we weren't going to do scripts, but there's a bunch of PowerShell scripts that you can do auditing, right? You can check when's the last time someone's logged into their Windows 365 environment, and you can do those through all those PowerShell scripts. So it's just a community PowerShell that people are adding scripts to for management.
perfect. Okay, well, now it gets into the fun stuff. So we're going to do an interactive demo with everybody, just how we typically build this out. If you guys have any questions or need us to spend some more time on the endpoint manager side of this, just let us know. We're going to try to go in depth on how we push this image out, how we manage the image through endpoint manager, how we secure it through Defender, and then even how to log it in at the end. So let me go ahead and share a new window. And Leif, could you give me the go ahead when my Chrome window is up?
Loud and clear, you're good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do in order to get this deployed is actually in the Azure portal. Okay, so in the Azure portal, I had mentioned a couple different security groups when we were doing the slideshow demonstration. One of those is going to be a user security group. And one of those we're going to do is a dynamic device security group. So the reason for the user security group is you might want to have multiple images or multiple sizes of machines in that provisioning profile based on people's task, their job tasks, right? So what I have now is I have a W365 remote users standard group. But for this, it's Leif's lucky day. So I'm going to go ahead and create an IT group. And the IT group is maybe going to get a little bit larger of an image, meaning more hardware here. So in Azure AD, we're going to go ahead instead of standard, we're going to call it -IT. This is used for Windows 365 remote users. And we're going to go ahead and just add Leif as a user to it. If I could spell his name right. And there's our
Want to
user.
do the demo one? You added my Sky North.
Oh, did I? Sorry.
I'd refresh the page.
Yeah, let me just toggle here. Okay, there it is. One common problem is when you add the wrong user account, it won't work. So let me go and add Leif's demo account instead of his production account. And Leif, if you could just monitor that for a second on your side and remove your other account, that would be good. I won't hold up the demonstration here. Okay, and the other thing we're going to do is we're going to create a dynamic device group. Now, what that means is this is going to be automatically populated. This is a set it and forget it group that all of our Windows 365 devices that we spit up through this portal, they're going to be pre-populated in this group automatically. Okay, you'd want to do that for many reasons. So that they all get the same security policies, that they'd all get the same applications, any of those baseline rules, anything that you're doing to manage that computer, you want to make sure they're all in the same group. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm just going to go ahead and show you the dynamic membership rule, which builds this. But basically, how this reads is when a computer enters Azure AD and their device model contains cloud PC, populate this group with that item. Okay, this is just a Microsoft built-in rule that lets us containerize all these computers into one security group. Okay, this is not the only thing you can do to separate your computers. There's tons of different properties that you can do. Maybe it's the OS version if you want to separate it that way. Maybe there's a display name to it. Maybe there's a model number. I guess the model number wouldn't apply for this, but there's a lot of different ways we can separate your devices in Azure. This specific rule is meant for Windows 365 only.
Yeah.
Okay.
And once we look at the licensing, so when we add the licensing to the other group we just created, it's a specific VM license. So you can even add the different VM specs as a filter here on the device model. So you could have, if IT had a different VM machine, you could use that as a filter for your device model here.
Yep. We're keeping it simple. We're just having one group that covers all of these, but know that we can get crafty with this and build out a dynamic rule that populates everything. So for right now, we do have one member because I have an existing computer in here. By the end of this demonstration, we'll have another member in here, which is going to be our new profile that we create. Okay, so again, two things that help manage this deployment is going to be a user group to assign your users to it, and the dynamic device group that's going to help you push down the rules and different management things to that device. Now, just since I'm here, I'm just going to, I was in the IT. I got to see if I can clean up Leif here.
I
You've
removed
already done
it.
that. Did you?
I
Okay,
didn't
you
do
did
the
that?
licensing though. So if you want to add the license.
Okay. Yep, perfect. Okay, so now that we have everything cleaned up from me clicking the wrong user, the next thing that we're going to do at this point is jump over to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. The example that we're showing you here is going to work for trial license for most of you, unless you're managed under a CSP or an LSP, a license provider. This tenant is not, so it's very easy for us to come in here under billing and then purchase services. Okay, so this might be slightly different for you on the call, depending on the size of your organization and how you're buying Windows, your existing cloud licenses.
And it's important to just know these licenses is just like your M365 license. You're going to assign them to a user to be able to provision that machine.
Yep, exactly. So for us, what I'm going to do is come in here to purchase services. I'm going to go ahead and search for Windows 365. I think I should have typed Windows, but this might work. Nope, we'll do Windows 365. And because the Microsoft search works so well, you have to scroll down a ways till you get to the Windows 365 section right here. Okay, and now notice we have our business, we have our enterprise, then we have this enterprise with hybrid benefit. That's if you guys, if your current EA, your current licensing agreement gives you that hybrid use benefit. So just know if you're trialing this out, if this is a demo, just pick Windows 365 Enterprise. You'll get 30 days no matter what. Okay. So now this is the Windows 365 Enterprise SKU. You'll notice if I'm going to pay for this, I can go all the way up to 8 virtual CPUs, 32 gigs of RAM, and a 512 gigabyte storage drive. It's $158 per license per month. So quite a bit of money. If I'm going to do the baseline, it's 28. We're really cheap here, so we're going to go ahead. Oh no, where is the trial here?
You already have that one selected. You got to do a different one.
That's
you
right.
The trial.
Sorry. So like I said, we're really cheap here, so I'm just going to do Instead of the enterprise, since I've already used that, we're going to
No,
use
you
the
can just select
business.
you can just select a different enterprise. You can't do the same. Go back to the
I think you're
enterprise.
okay. We're going to try this out. Should I just choose hybrid one? Okay, we're just going to do the hybrid one. This is just for a temporary demo. So there is a try for free option here. That's what I wanted. Otherwise, I would have had to enter my credit card and get it that way. So we're going to go ahead and try now. Okay. We have now assigned that trial license to our tenant. Okay, so now at this point, I can assign it to a user. I have a single user I can do this to. So I'm going to come here to my users. I'm going to search for Leif Olson's demo account, which is right here. I'm going to go to
And yeah, and
license
another way,
apps.
and maybe show we can do that in the Windows 365 remote users IT group. We could even do group licensing there, so anyone that joins that group would automatically get that license as
Yes,
well.
great point, Leif. Let me show you that. So an easy way to do it is come here into the admin portal, which requires more clicks if you guys have multiple users to do it. For me, since this is one user, I'm going to do it directly to Leif and consume that license. And then you notice we have the EMS license here too. So Leif's qualified for Intune. He's actually qualified 3 different ways. We have EMS E3, E5, and a Microsoft E3 license for Leif. So we should be good to go on the licensing front now for Leif. Now, what Leif was mentioning is an easier way for those in the managing a lot of users. You might want to assign the license directly to that IT group we created, right? So you can come in here and you can actually make that a group managed license so that everybody in that group automatically would get one of those Windows 365 licenses. Just a heads up, this Windows 365 license does this licensing feature requires Active Directory Premium Plan 1. If you have EMS E3, you'll have that license too. But just know that this might not be lit up unless your user is a premium Active Directory user. Okay. So this would be the easy button there on doing that. Okay, so now that we've created the groups, we've assigned the licenses, now it's the fun stuff. Now we're going to go into the Endpoint Manager portal, which again is endpoint.microsoft.com. We'd select the Devices blade, and we'd come here to the Provisioning Windows 365 tab. Okay, so what we have already, I already have a provisioning profile, and I already have one PC built. I'm going to walk you guys through this computer once we actually kick off this next profile. But this is what you can expect to see once you have some computers in here. Okay, we have one computer's provisioned. It gives us the details as to who's using it. But now we have Leif. He's our new user. He's IT. He's going to get a little bit bigger machine. So we're going to come and create a policy for Leif. And I'm going to call this IT. How about Windows 365 IT policy? And Leif is going to be just an Azure join, so nothing connected on premise. So we're going to use the Microsoft hosted network here. If we were to do this hybrid join, you would have to have that pre-configured VNet that I was talking about, which we did in our other example. So I'll show you that in a second. So we're going to just do a regular join, and we're going to select Central US. The image, we're not bringing our own image today, although you could. We're just going to select one from the gallery. And Leif, would you like a Windows 10 or 11 box?
Let's do 11 with the M365 apps.
Perfect. Okay, we'll go ahead and do Windows 11. We're going to click Next. We'll use English as the language. And then here's our assignment groups. Who should this assign to? So we're going to do our Windows 365 IT users, which includes just Leif at this point.
So and think about that, right? If you had that group and had the group licensing, anytime you add a user to that group, they're automatically going to get licensed, and then a machine's going to be provisioned for them.
Yep, exactly. And then everything looks good there. So we're going to go and create it. Now onto the user settings. I'm just going to come in here to my existing user settings, and I'm going to add that same group. to this because Leif is going to be local admin. Oh, and if I can find it. Okay, there's my IT group. They're also going to be added to my my allowing Leif to be admin. I'm going to go and update that. And that's it. We are on our way to getting an image built. So when we come here to provisioning profiles, let's see here. Eventually, we're going to see that a new computer is being provisioned. And Leif's going to eventually going to be able to log into it here as long as all of the licensing went through with that hybrid. A couple other things to call out now. We are not bringing a custom image, so we do not have anything in our custom image, but we did connect an Azure virtual network for the machine I'm going to be logging into. This is actually a VNet connected to skynorthdemo.com. So that's my internal domain. I have a Windows domain controller that I'll show you in a second. But basically, this VNet, M365 VNet, lives in this same subscription, this Azure subscription that I have. When you go and add this, it's actually really easy to do. You would click a new hybrid join VNet. So we'll just call this a new hybrid VNet. And we're going to associate it with our subscription. You're going to find the resource group where that VNet lives. And there's my VNet, and there's the subnet that I'm going to connect through. Okay. So it's literally as easy as doing this and then typing in what credentials it takes to join to your Windows domain. So what OU do you want that computer to go to? Who should be the credentials you're joining it with? What's their password? You're done.
Yep.
Okay.
It's important to point out, right? Of course, you need to have that site-to-site VPN or express route, so you can route that back. Unless you have especially if you have a DC, you most likely already have it in Azure, but you have to have those kind of pieces connected.
Yep, absolutely. And I'll call that the plumbing, Leif. The plumbing has to be there in order for you to do the hybrid join. So let me just explain to you how we got the plumbing there. So I have a virtual network called M365 underscore VNet. So if I switch over to my Azure portal and we come here, well, I'll search for VNet. Let me just find virtual network. So if we come to my Azure portal, you'll notice I have an M365 VNet configured here. Now, the really cool thing about this virtual network is that it's actually connected over to another subscription through peering. And
Right above where you have it selected.
Right there, right there. Okay, so my M365 VNet in Azure is actually connected to another subscription's VNet. And we have it configured for peering, which means they're connected at the subnet level, basically. We can traverse one VNet to the other VNet. Now, why we did this in our example is because we have an Azure subscription in a different directory that we pay for with partner credits, with Microsoft partner credits, because we're a gold partner for Azure. So we didn't want to have to build a whole new subscription and have another department per se pay for more virtual machines in this network. So what we did is actually connected this VNet, which is local to Windows 365 through peering, and I'm going to share my other screen now. And this is our other tenant, which has an Azure subscription. Leif, can you see me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay, and what you'll see is in this subscription, we have, whoops, that's virtual machines. We wanted virtual networks. In this subscription, I have a VNet called VNet1 SkyNorth Demo that is running all of our domain virtual machines, such as this ADFS box and my domain controller box. Okay, so that's kind of the physical architecture of this right now. I'm going to share what. Oh,
And
go ahead.
I was just saying the importance of this is a lot of organizations have multiple subscriptions or different areas, right? Different departments could have a subscription. So what we're doing is showing how you can jump subscriptions and think maybe IT owns the express route subscription, and the VNets are just peered to other subscriptions. So we're just jumping kind of the subscription barrier.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. Maybe IT says, hey, there's no way I'm paying for this Windows 365, but this other department, research and development, is going to pay for it. That whole networking and domain join can traverse the internet and can traverse VNets, like they've mentioned. So if we look at my actual Active Directory, my traditional Active Directory domain controller, you can see I have my CPC, Cloud PC, Scott Kyser M7, Windows 365 virtual desktop living in the cloud, actually a member of my computer. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So just showing you kind of the plumbing there. What I'm going to do now, kind of to close this out and to show you how to connect, is reshare with my Chrome. Leif, give me the thumbs up when you can see me.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, perfect. So now I am the end user. I want to connect. How do I do it? The easiest way is going to Windows 365.microsoft.com. Okay, this is your Windows 365 splash page. I have one image, one profile assigned to me. There's my image right here. If you wanted to download those apps I was talking about for Windows Desktop, for Mac, for Android, for iOS, you can come here through the download menu and go to the relative store to download them.
And
Accessible
if you're
from
already
anywhere.
using AVD and maybe a thin client environment, it's the same thing, right? It's just a different endpoint you got to point it to. Same clients.
Exactly. Yep. You have alternative options to restart, to rename, to troubleshoot, to get the system info of that device. And then if you want to log into it, we're going to click open in browser. What's going to ask us, what do we want to allow to be connected with my local PC? I don't want a printer. I don't want the microphone. Maybe you don't want the clipboard. You can control this through GPO because this is a domain join machine. There is ways to disable this.
And you
Uh,
can do that in Intune too, Endpoint
yep,
Manager.
yep, or in Intune. And then we're going to go and open the machine and it's going to log me in. And I am in. Now, a couple things. This machine is managed through Intune. So if we have a little bit of time left here, we're going to go through the Endpoint Manager side of this. But you can notice with my extremely missized Sky North logo that it automatically pushed this down to the machine through Microsoft Intune. You'll notice over here on the left, I installed just a very lightweight media player, VLC, for those that are familiar with it. I also did that through Intune. Okay. I push down apps to this, usually the company portal app, because that's hand in hand with Intune as well. So I have the company portal app that was automatically installed. Okay, now what I think is really the icing on the cake here, and I think this is super cool, is since we are connected to our VNet that's connected us to on-prem, I can get to that directory ADFS box that I just showed you on a whole different Azure subscription, different region, different everything. And I can actually get to that file share, well, it's C drive, from here on this Windows 365 desktop. So this hard drive is actually on the other virtual machine I have living in a totally different region. So this at this point is a domain issued PC. Okay, and you guys get all the control of Endpoint Manager. I've pushed Windows Defender down to this, so it's enrolled into Defender. Everything that you would get on a naturally domain issued local laptop or desktop, you have right here. Okay, so now let's go take a look. I'm a little worried about Leif's license here, and I don't think we're going to make the half-hour threshold. But Leif, can you just log into your Microsoft and just see if it's started?
Yep. And while I'm doing that, I'm getting prompted for MFA.
Well, that's a great thing to call out. So Leif is getting prompted for MFA while he's trying to access it. So we had mentioned that this goes through the conditional access rule set. Okay, so I have a rule in my conditional access. All users, virtual desktops require MFA. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that. And we'll notice here that there is a specific cloud app for Windows 365 and Azure Virtual Desktop that you could create your own access rules into it. So Leif needs MFA for his. That's because we have this checkbox here, MFA required. But we could put additional rules, like the device has to be compliant through Intune. Maybe it has to be a hybrid join device in order to get to that connection. But you have that flexibility to even let work from home users get to this just on their unmanaged personal PC, or get the more complex side of this where we want all Intune management and everything to be tightly secured. The other thing that I'll show you while we're waiting on Leif to give us confirmation or not is in the Endpoint Manager portal. We had mentioned that we can pre-configure some hardened services for this machine. And so if I go to Windows and then I go to Windows devices, actually, sorry, if I go to wait a second, I got to find it now. Too many things to click. Nope, sorry, it is under endpoint security. So if we click on endpoint security, there is a section called security baselines here. And notice that Microsoft gives you this pre-canned preview baseline. This is so you can easily harden that machine, meant for Windows 365. So I can click into this. I can create a profile, and I'll call it security baseline for IT Windows 365. And then just walking you through the rule set. This is everything that Microsoft recommends. Now, if there's things that you don't want to do, you can always come in here and toggle it off. For instance, the firewall. If you don't want it configured, you could set it to not configured and really make it fit you. But all of these settings are things that Microsoft recommends off the gate. And you would just walk through and you would assign that same group, either user group or device group, as included in this policy to be able to harden it. And just to show you, I had mentioned Windows Defender a few times. So if I come here to security.microsoft.com, Leif and I both absolutely love the Windows Defender package, the cloud integrated license for all the AV purposes. We found it to work really, really well. Extremely easy to deploy too, especially when you're using Microsoft Intune. But if I come here to device inventory, you'll actually see. Oh, and actually, Leif, I think your machine is starting to build out. So
it is. It's
we'll
trying.
Yep. But you can see here my M7 machine that I already had pre-configured is actually already inventoried, already being scanned, already being managed by Windows Defender. We can get software inventory. We can figure out patch levels. We can figure out vulnerability risks, all that added benefit Defender. And it was super, super easy to do. In Endpoint Manager, we just have to go and create a configuration profile that is a Windows Defender deployment profile. Just a couple of clicks, and you say, include my Windows 365 dynamic devices, and everything's automatic, right? Very easy to get this stuff pushed out.
Tracy has a question with Endpoint Manager. Assume we can control the RDP sessions like in GPO, clipboard, client drive, and redirection. Yes. Yep, we can. There's basically a setting catalog that we can go in there. We create a profile in Windows 10, and then we can go in there and add the settings for the settings catalog.
Yep, exactly. So if we take a deeper look into the Endpoint Manager side of this, the actual Intune control side,
Do the
there's
settings. Do the settings calendar.
Settings catalog. Okay. I'm just gonna type test for quickness. Was there a specific one, Leif?
I think it's like printer redirection would be one of them.
Power, privacy, I could search. Yeah, admin templates printers probably be under here, or printer redirection right here.
Yep. So we can control those settings.
Yep. Well, and one thing just to remember too, um, the business license, if you're going to go with the M or the Windows 365 business, you don't get all the cool Intune Endpoint Manager stuff. So that's where you need the enterprise license to be able to do all of this. But yeah, and just kind of a general, endpoint manager display really quick. You can do absolutely tons of control things with Windows right now. If you were to ask me 3.5 years ago when I was still at Microsoft as a TSP, this list was like 4 items. There wasn't much you could do. They were just getting started at it. They realized that, hey, this is a platform is really picking up speed. You can do tons of stuff in here. Now, it might not be relevant for a Windows 365 PC to have a Wi-Fi profile, right? I don't know why you'd want to do that, but all kinds of other stuff in here might still apply where you want to lock down the desktop, you want to push software, you want to push endpoint protection settings and scan schedules. You can do all of that the same as if it was a hardware PC, exact same. It's just that you're just managing that entire image in the cloud. And the last thing that I'll show you, since we mentioned it a few times here too, under apps, we have a handful of, let me actually filter this by Windows apps, okay? We have a handful of apps that are linked into the Windows Store for Business, which are your, kind of like your mobile app platform. It's the apps, it's not the full thick clients. Things like Company Portal, Excel Mobile, you can push those down to the Windows image, no problem. When you start getting into full installed apps, like for instance that VLC media player or Adobe, or if you work for a bank or a credit union, you have some proprietary software you install. You can do all of that through the Endpoint Manager. And actually, Microsoft has a virtual support team now that if you have any issues deploying an app through Intune that you can do automatically through SCCM today or through your own deployment process today, they'll help you with that deployment. Okay, so contact Microsoft. There's a virtual team. I can't remember the name of it. It's like called App Assurance, I think. So if you're saying, hey, we can't get Adobe to install, it's being a pain, you might be able to contact Microsoft to get help with actually getting it listed in here, so you can do this all remotely. So lots of cool stuff there. Any other questions in the chat? The only issue that doesn't kick in right away.
I'm refreshing.
Yes,
It's still hanging.
yes, and I think I don't know if that was in regards to the Windows 365 image we deployed, but the dynamic groups sometimes take a little bit of time to um, compilate. I'll call it. Now, Josh, being a GCC customer, he might have a little bit more delays than our standard commercial customer too, but for the most part, we've seen a lot of improvements with the dynamic group and the compilation time, and we still love them. Right. Oh, and Leif, thanks for the great screenshot. Leif is seeing it. It's just it's chugging away. Okay, so let me just switch back to my PowerPoint. That's pretty much about it. Let's just see if we can get back here. Present. All right, I'm gonna cycle back. Okay, so for the demonstration, again, we walk through creating the dynamic device groups. Those are great. They'll help you automate it. Creating the user groups. Those could technically also be dynamic if you wanted them to be. For instance, if everybody in that IT department had IT in their in their in their user profile in Azure, you could technically make those dynamic too if you wanted to. We use this static group. You saw how easy it was to get a trial license and assign to a user. Quick reminder that if it's not as easy as that in your tenant, that probably means that your licenses are being managed third party. Just give your LSP a call, say, hey, we'd like to trial M365. When I signed up for a trial, I got a call within, I think, 2 hours from a Fargo Microsoft rep trying to sell me on it. So expect a call from Microsoft Marketing if you're going to sign up for this. Go ahead and create your Windows 360 profile. log into Endpoint Manager, set up your compliance policy, your configuration policy, your Defender profile, push down apps, do all of that fun stuff. And then hopefully within a half hour to an hour, you'll see your first machine being able to log in.
Yeah, go make a pizza or get a cup of coffee.
Make a pizza. But as you can see, Leif's screenshot, Leif's is almost there. We're out of content to demo, so if there's no other questions, I think we'll just go ahead and say thank you. Thank you for attending. Make sure you do the survey. We really love it when you guys fill out the survey and give us feedback. Like I said, we originally started with SharePoint Saturday. We like it when we deliver content that helps you out. So if this was good, just give us a 2 thumbs up in the survey. If it was bad and you guys want to see, more end user stuff or less admin stuff, definitely let us know. We'd like to tailor it for you. So thank you everybody else. And Tim, I don't know if you're still on or if you checked out, but over to you for closure.
All right. No, you woke me up. No, that was good, guys. Thank you very, very, very much. Appreciate it. It's good content. Even like for me, even being in it, some of the clarification and some of those points is excellent. If there's no other questions, guys, anybody have anything else? I will go ahead with giving away the gift card, and then we'll give you a little bit of a break here before the 2:30 session. 2:30, just to let you know, in this the admin track here is Ben Lockwood. He's presenting on bye domain join and hello Azure AD join devices when using autopilot. So a little autopilot demonstration. We're looking forward to that. Let me go ahead and present my fancy wheel picker here, that my little app that helps me choose who's going to win $25. Which I typically use to choose when we're all sitting around the office. I use this app to pick where we should go to lunch. We put them all in here and then give it a spin, and other major life choices too. So, all right, let's give it. These are the people that are kind of contributing to the conversation, asking questions. I'm gonna give it a spin. Joshua Fox. So Joshua, if I will see if I can pull your email. Sometimes I can't. If you wouldn't mind throwing an email in the chat for me, that would be excellent. That way I can make sure we get this out to you. All right. And other than that, I'm going to drop the survey URL in the chat one more time.
Hey, Tim, I'm going to need a link to that spinner wheel app. I could use that for my weekend decisions.
Yeah, exactly. What lake you want to fish?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. That was excellent. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.